My name is Matt Brown. I'm a solutions architect here at Squid. I'm joined by a whole passel of good people. Carl will be helping
everybody
today. Hey, Carl. He's kind of a referee. He's got the time turkey and the what do we call the frog?
I forgot.
It is
I think Pierre the frog.
Pierre the frog.
Pierre the.
And we have a time pig now.
Yeah, we got a pig.
All right, that's great. Awesome. I should have my kids start taking the Nautilus Notes.
They should. It's a farm.
It's a veritable.
It's a farmyard.
Veritable old McDonald's here.
All for you guys.
Yep. Awesome. So let's go ahead and jump in. If this is your first time joining, the Nautilus Notes is something that we do monthly. It's a chance for us to get together, talk about what's going on in the Squid technical community, what's going on in the product, things people are running into, stuff to watch out for, really good combos. We do this internally and we love it. It's a great way for us to kind of all get better together. And there's all these nooks and crannies in the Squid product that it's helpful to kind of surface from time to time. That even if you've been in Squid for a while, there might be things that you might not have known about or you might have forgotten about, and things coming down the pike that we want to make you aware of. And so, yeah, it's just a fun chance for us to get together and talk about these things. There's Q&A and there's chat. So if you have a specific question that you want us to try and answer, please go ahead and put that in Q&A and we'll do our best to get to it as we go. If you just want to be like a generally unruly hooligan, the chat is a great place for that kind of stuff. So shout outs, heckling, that's a good place to do that in the chat. It's the Wild West. So we can't promise any kind of reaction if it's in the chat. Good?
Fair enough.
All right.
Legal says you're covered.
We know who you are, troublemakers. We know.
We like the troublemakers.
Right.
They're a good rascally group of good-hearted troublemakers. All right, so this is our 5th Nautilus Notes. That's pretty awesome. Thank you, everyone. Yeah, seriously. Thank you for keeping that coming. It really is a highlight of the month. Our format, we've got a doc that we're going through here. So if you're looking at the screen, you should see a Google Doc. We use this as our draft. We've said many times that we're going to post these online, and I have still not figured out how best to do that. There are recordings on the YouTube channel. I did finally get last month's recording up on the YouTube channel. So a 19.4 is on there. There's some really cool things on there. If you want to go check that out, we'll post the link on the community as well. So we've got a couple of things that we'll go through that we do every time, and then a couple of special highlights. Yeah, so let's start. What's going on at Squid? So I highlight this every time. Every Wednesday, I do something called the New to Squid webinar. You can go and register for that here. Actually, you know what? Nope, not there. Man, warts and all, huh? So you'll go to webinars on the Squid website, and we've got the New to Squid webinar here. And I'm just going to go ahead and put that link in the chat. Because if you have someone that is just diving into Squid, this is a great place to come and learn Squid for the first time. We take 30 minutes. We go through the basics of navigating the app, building a Squid page, showing that page in Lightning. And you can go and register for that. So if you've got someone that you want to learn Squid, please send them there. And then have them come to the Nautilus Notes where we'll dive a little bit deeper.
What's it called again?
That is our New to Squid webinar.
Okay.
New to Squid webinar. Yeah. We're gonna go ahead. We're just gonna. Yep. I'm just gonna put the. Yep. We're gonna button that up and enunciate clearly. That is the New to Squid webinar. Webinar. All right. What else is happening? Michael Bernazzoli is one of our pre-sales engineers, and he did a really cool Squid Models, dive into Squid Models last week. That is on our webinars section of the website. That's one of our Squid dives, so please go check that out. Models are kind of the secret sauce, one of the elements of the secret sauce in Squid. We have a lot of secret sauces, you could say. This is Jackson's first time, so he doesn't know how goofy we get.
He was here once before.
It gets
Yeah,
goofy.
I'm ready. I'm already contributing to the goofiness.
Yeah,
Some might
absolutely.
call it a data abstraction layer.
Yeah, there you go. Carl, getting us back on track. So yeah, no, models are part of Squid's secret sauce, that data abstraction layer, which lets you create the data layer that you need in your application. It's really cool. There's a lot of functionality there. So if you're relatively new to Squid, that might be one of the paradigm shifts in terms of how you think about building pages. So please go check that out. And then we've got a Build an App workshop coming up October 9th. Again, you can register for that on the webinars section of the website. And heck, yeah, I'll just go ahead and put that link in the chat as well. The Build an App workshop is a great way to see kind of a start to finish use case of Squid, how you might build it out, set up that data layer, display it on the page, and give it to end users. So definitely go check that out and dive into the Squid stream. Okay, last, again, we say this every time, but Dreamforce is coming up in November. Squid's going to be there. We're going to have a real good time. So please put on your calendars. And I think we're going to have a space that's not a Dreamforce space, separate.
The Lagoon.
So do you have to be a Dreamforce attendee in order to come see us at that space? Do we know? Anyone know?
I don't think you have to, but you do have to register on the Squid website.
Ah, okay, cool. Yeah. So if you want to see Squid and you are around, but not going to Dreamforce, we would still love to see
The
you.
Dreamforce webpage for Squid's not up yet.
Yeah.
So
We're just
Get away.
Or just come.
I doubt they'll be that particular.
Everybody's welcome.
Say, I know Matt Brown, and they'll be like, oh yeah, come on in.
All right, we'll keep moving along. I'm trying to relax us a little bit. We cram too much into these. I'm reducing scope a little bit. We all know in professional services that doesn't happen nearly enough. But reducing scope a little bit, and we're in October now, and I'm sure that everyone is. Everything is happening at once for like everyone. So I'm just going to take this time, try to relax us a little bit, and we'll enjoy it. Bring that heart rate down.
Imagine
Have a good
yourself sipping a pumpkin spice latte
On the beach.
on the
Only it
beach.
wasn't.
Ugh.
Yeah.
It's a
only
hot day
without
at the
the
beach
spice
and you're
or the
drinking a pumpkin spice latte. Okay, a couple quotes of the month. My dad always said, I think he was paraphrasing Patton, but a bad plan executed well is better than a good plan executed poorly or not at all. And I've definitely thought about that in the implementation side, where if you are thoughtful up front about your data model, what you want to do, and you design it, you're already at like 50% and above. And if you try to just kind of add feature after feature as you go, you end up with a mountain of features that all interact with each other in really chaotic and unpredictable ways. So it's just good to have a plan, think through that, spend as much time, more time than you think you need on the design side, on the prep side. Arn says, slow down. I agree. I don't know if he's telling us to slow down.
I think he's asking why we're slowing down.
Because we're slowing down because we go overtime every time.
And you have to end on time.
Yeah, we're slowing down in terms of how much content we try to cram in here. All right, and then Jay says you can't pound hot soup. It doesn't work. And I'm sure there's a metaphor in there somewhere, but it was actually just tied to the fact he was trying to eat hot soup really quickly.
Like right before this meeting.
Absolutely. So you can read into that and try to figure out how that's gonna, play into.
You can do it. It hurts a lot.
Okay, Clark says we're table thumping way too much. So
Yeah,
isn't that a hit song from the '90s
I think so.
by Chumbawamba? Okay. All right.
Man,
Thank
we're
you.
at 10 minutes.
Thank you, Carl. So let's go ahead and jump into the contributor's choice. So this is one of the sections where we want to highlight some aspects of Squid that you may not know about because they're kind of hidden deep or they're brand new. And that's what today we're going to be looking at. This is something that just got put out in 12.2. It's available in your Salesforce orgs if you have 12.2 installed or higher. And it is in platform as well, so it's in all versions of Squid, 12.2 and up. But it is only available in V2. So V1, V2, two different component libraries, two different experiences. But yeah, this is available in V2. It is tied to a lot of community requests over the years. I just want to call these out because there's probably way more than this as well. It's just one of the most common things that gets posted on the community. So thank you to everyone for surfacing that. But I think it's one of those places that has required a lot of JavaScript over the years doing calculation. And so JD Bell from our product and engineering team has heard your cry and has worked hard to deliver the functionality to do date formulas in Squid. And let me show you what it looks like. I've got it in a page over here. All right, so we've got a close date on our opportunity, and then we have some formulas, days from today, and then some friendly renderings of that as well. So let's look behind the scenes in terms of what's going on there. These are available in your model. When you create a UI only field, you can make it a formula field, and it's a new function that you can add. We've got a couple of new functions. There's date diff, which allows you to put in a date and then the date you want to compare it with, and then you can put in a parameter for the increments that you want. If you spit that out as a text field instead of a number field, that's how you get these really friendly words that are much easier on the eyes than just a raw number.
Suitable for humans.
Suitable for humans, indeed. And so that's the date diff function. And then we also have the date add function as well. So you put in a date, the number of increments that you want to add to it, and then the type of increment. So in this case, it's days, and we can see a follow-up date for our close date that is 2 weeks after, or 14 days after. So that's something that's been asked for a while. It's available in Squid V2. So JD, any things to watch out for, specific ways of putting information in there? What do you want to make us aware of there?
Sure, these functions can actually be used in several different ways. Some of those arguments are optional and can change the output. So what we've done is we've added a new formula help link just above the formula.
Look at that.
Which will take you straight to our V2 formula documentation. And if you scroll down a little bit, you'll see the documentation for the
I'm just going to do Control F.
date
I can't do
date
it. There we go.
A couple things to note. Date diff takes 3 arguments. The first one is your from, the second one is your to, and the third one is the units that you want to measure in. The from date is actually optional. You can leave that out. And if you do that, then it will just do a date from now, from the current date time. And the units is optional. So if you want to calculate in, say, days or weeks, that will give you a number, positive if it's if your to date is after your from date, negative if it's before your from date. If you leave that argument off and you don't supply a third argument, and then you get your text string, which returns a phrase, and it will for dates in the future will say in, say, 30 seconds or 10 years, it will figure that out using an algorithm. Or if it's in the past, it will say 10 years ago, 2 months ago, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think I implemented something wrong because it's telling me that 2016 is in 3 years. So that's a user.
I think you must have gotten the
That's
from
user
to
error.
reverse.
Yeah, we have to go back to the future.
Yes, now is in 3 years from September 30th, 2000.
Awesome. So that is a long time coming, and hopefully should help you eliminate a ton of JavaScript in your pages there. So please go check that out. And I absolutely love the fact that we have a link here to take you straight to our UI only formulas docs. So that's really cool. Thank you to the product team and the product content team that requires a lot of coordination there. So good stuff. Okay, so speaking of V2, I got a poll here. I would like to know if you have deployed V2 pages to production. Please let us know. If you have, go ahead and click yes, or no, but you will soon, or no, you can't right now because of issues or feature gaps, or no, everything's fine and you don't need to. So either way, please let us know, and that'll help us a lot.
Got a lot of responses coming in already.
Yes. We got at least one yes. Awesome.
Matt,
Two yeses.
I have a question.
Yeah, go ahead, Jackson.
Why the date diff and date add stuff? Why isn't that in V1?
That is a great question. Can you answer that for
If
us?
only we had an engineer.
JD, can you? I don't have a good answer to
There
that.
was the basic answer. There was a pretty big formula refactor that went along with V2 that
Oh.
made doing this much more possible and feasible
Cool.
than it is in V1.
What's going on with that formula refactor?
It has to do with some libraries that we're using and when and how we load those libraries. For the sake of ink components, we re-engineered the way we load those in, and so they were readily available for these kinds of formula enhancements.
Okay, cool.
We could potentially do it in V1, but we're trying to keep V1 as stable as possible, and we didn't want to introduce a whole bunch of refactoring of the way those libraries get loaded, which could potentially have problems for V1 pages.
Yep.
So,
Yep. No, that's helpful. That is really helpful to understand. Bill Fox is asking about collapsible panels. Let's come back to that. I think we've got something that's cool to show later on. So sit tight, Bill. We'll get to that in a bit. All right. Okay. So let's go ahead and get into some of the lessons that we've been learning. I've got 3 here, and first, want to give a shout out. If you haven't seen, Clark Craig has been out on the community a ton, answering questions. Let's just give him a hand. Everyone's here.
Gathering other people's information to answer questions.
Hey, that's what we do.
Important.
Yeah, so Clark's been out on the community trying to answer folks' questions. And if you have questions, again, if you're new to Squid, please know you can go to community.squid.com. You can post questions there, issues that you run into. We have champions that are customers and partners that are out there answering questions, and then we try to get there as much as we can to answer as quickly as we can.
Big shout out to the champions as well.
Yep, absolutely. And Lucy does a lot of stuff on here.
Yeah.
Okay, so there were a number of things that I noticed that were related to client-side data operations. And so when we think about what we're doing in Squid, we're building pages that pull data into the browser and let us do a ton of stuff in the browser, and then commit those changes back to the database if we need to. And so we give you a lot of capability around how you can move that data around and what you can do with it using actions. And sometimes it can get kind of confusing. But there were a couple things on the community that all kind of tied into this. So Clark, can you sum up for us what was going on with the Adopt Rows post here?
Yeah, so basically, if I remember correctly, I was just refreshing my memory on this today. We were, what Mark was trying to do is he was trying to create some new related records in the UI, adopt them into another model for record creation purposes, and then tie those related records together all in one, which is a lot of things to do at once. And there's reasons in the post, if you read into the details about why he wanted to go through the UI model for creation to adopt into other rows, rather than just creating directly on the model with the object. But what he found was whenever he was using adopt rows, or the output from adopt rows, he was losing context when saving the records. And so the creation, Squid has kind of a cool ability to tie records together when they're both created in the UI and you save them. However, our Squid temporary IDs don't always track through that whenever you're using the output of the adopt rows. So we ran into some challenges.
Let me stop you for a second, because there's a couple of terms that I want to call out.
Yep.
First is output. So output is something that is relatively new to Squid. I think maybe a year or two old. We gave you the ability to have inputs and outputs in the action sequences
with merge syntax.
And so yeah, there are these variables that let you refer to things, and so specifically, adopt rows is a Squid action, and you can say when we move rows from one place to another, we want those to be recognized by this output label. I do want to call out too, adopt rows is an action in Squid, in the action framework. And it is kind of a confusing action, because you're not, sometimes you think, oh, if I move rows from model A to then model B, and then I hit save in model B, well, that, that saves those changes, because model B is my, model with these conditions on it. Well, no, because adopt rows is just about moving data from one place to another in the client. It doesn't constitute an actual update on those rows. And so, Jay.
The other way I've put it before is the result of adopt rows is the same as if you had queried those records from the server. That no matter what they are before they got adopted, the end result is as if they had just come back from a select from the server.
And so if you're using adopt rows and you have UI only fields that are, displaying things, and you want to adopt that in, just because it's displayed in the UI doesn't mean that it's actually saving any information back in there. So it's only if you actually perform an update on a row. So let me ask this. If I have model A and I perform an update on some of the rows in there, but I don't save, and I adopt from model A to model B, do those still count as unsaved changes? Right. So in a model, if you want to,
I shook my head.
yeah.
The camera's
Oh, right. So, yeah. Jay shook his head. Yeah.
I shook my head.
Stenographer, can you read that back, please?
I didn't realize we were having a conversation. I thought you were just
Nonverbal
talking.
communication. Yeah. Yeah. So that doesn't count as it doesn't actually count as an action, as an update, unless there's an actual update made in the model that you're working on. So if you're wondering why changes aren't getting pushed back, that may be one reason. The other reason is related to context, and specifically we mean action context. So talk to us a little bit about what is going on with action context. What do we mean when we say action context?
So action context has to do with how Squid resolves merge syntax, especially in the action framework, or with some specific actions, what data the action will act on. By default, typically most buttons or row actions on table, things like that, will supply an initial starting context, which usually includes a model and either a row or a group of rows. But then as the actions trigger one after another, some actions can actually change that context. A classic example is create row. So if you create a row, up to that action, perhaps there was a row in context. After that action going forward, you now have the created row in context. And so all actions after that are acting on the created row.
So yeah, if you have a really complex string of actions, that is something to watch out for, is as you go from A to B to C to D, you may be doing something that may change the context of things. So even though you started over here, you're now over here. And so if you're trying to inject a merge variable and you're now in a different context, that might not be coming through. And that would be the reason why you're not in the same context that you were when you started. So it's just something to watch out for when you're doing those action sequences. There's also something here related to the idea of temporary IDs. And so when you create a new record using Skuid in the client, if you go look at its ID, you'll see not a Salesforce record ID, but a temporary Skuid record ID. That, Jay, what happens with that? Does that get converted? What does that process look like when we save?
All right, so you're talking about a brand. So we're not adopted over.
No, just creating a new row.
Yeah. So we basically, as you're creating these rows client side, we are generating these temporary IDs, and we're able to reconcile them server side and swap it out for the permanent ID when you actually do a save. So that's kind of, we're doing all that internally in our own code and swapping those temp IDs out for real ones once they're available. That's how we can create multiple records across multiple related objects and stuff like that. So if you see this temp IDs, just know that means that record is only held client side and doesn't actually exist in your data source.
And we have some magic there, that if you have conditions that are tying records together, and you create multiple records, like if you create a new account and a new opportunity in the same process, they all get that temporary ID. But if you have them tied together using conditions, then they all convert and the relationships convert as well. And so as long as you have a condition that says, the new opportunity is related to field from another model, is that what it has to be, right? Field from another model. And so you can reference that account ID. The temporary IDs will convert over to permanent Salesforce record IDs when you hit save. So I just want to show what we're talking about there. When we create a new page, let's go ahead and do that. So when we have a page that creates a new record, you can see there's that temp record ID. And if we hit save, gosh, man, spelling. If we hit save, that converts to a Salesforce permanent ID. So that can be helpful if you're wanting to tie new records together. And that is what we're talking about when we talk about adopt rows and create new records and outputs.
Yeah. Can I just stop for a moment?
Yeah, go ahead.
We're doing pretty good on time, but that is such an understated Matt Brown thing. That feature there, as a longtime system administrator, is stinking awesome. I mean, and I don't want to mess up the audio or anything, but that just gives me goosebumps in a really good way. Just being able to assign temporary record IDs and then have those turn into permanent ones and save across multiple data sets, freaking awesome.
Yeah, no, thank you, Dev Team.
And I will say that the challenge that we ran into there, and one of the questions Mark had was pertaining to using outputs to pass that temporary ID. That relationship is lost whenever you use that temporary ID in terms of outputs.
So you can't really use that temporary ID in any way other than
directly from the table, but whenever you use it from an output, it loses context of that relationship.
Okay.
And so it won't tie together, and that's what we were running into in that post.
Got it. So there may be some other ways to do that.
Absolutely.
But just to know what's happening with those temporary IDs, I think is pretty important. So this was one of the other community posts that came up, updating or removing a specific row from a model. And I'll quickly go through this. This is something that I've definitely run into a number of different times where you want to go, find a row on a model and remove that specific row on a model. And this is related to that idea of context. What context are things happening in? And this, I'll admit it, it's a little bit hacky. And maybe there's a better way to do that. This is why we have people like Jay in the room, because they can tell us if we're off, doing crazy stuff. What I would do sometimes is if I want to do something and remove certain rows from a model, I can have a UI only field that functions as a trigger that basically listens for an update, and then it runs some logic at the row level. And then Skuid lets you have model actions that listen for row updates. And so you can have a branch that says, basically, if this criteria is true on this row, then update this trigger field. And you can listen for that action, and based on that, you can remove that specific row from the model. So the point is sometimes if you want to get specific row context in a behind the scenes way, not from a row action or something like that, you can use a model action to listen for a row update on a UI only field or something to run that trigger. Jay, how are we doing as far as hackiness?
You've done worse. Yeah, using context is key. When you first read that, I was like, why don't you just use an act and then trigger your action sequence? But it's the context you're zeroing.
Right, you want him to do it only on specific rows. That's the thing.
Yeah,
So,
I mean, that's not going to break.
Yeah.
That'll keep working.
Yeah,
Sure.
cool. Well, that's all I'm looking for. Yeah. If I create a Rube Goldberg machine involving several Matryoshka dolls, but it works and it's not going to break, I'm good.
And you hit the deadline.
Right.
Okay.
No, I don't recommend that.
Yeah, we're getting some community post photo or community photo shout outs here. We need more info on your avatar there.
Oh yeah, it's really old. That's a young beard in there. I'll go ahead and update that.
Yeah.
Yeah, the one that has. I'll put the one with the flowers on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good.
Your posts don't carry quite the same weight without the beard.
Yeah, that's true. My credibility has been tanking.
Paul Mackinac says proper Bob Ross beard.
Thank you. Right. Happy little tables. Thank you, Paul. Okay. Last thing I want to point out is some of the posts too are related to this idea of auto-populating values. So when you create new rows and you want them to have values by default, there's a couple of different ways you can do that. Specifically, you can do it with an explicit update action. So create this row, then go update these fields with these values. You can also do a default value on create action. So in the action sequence, you can go ahead and I'll just go ahead and show this here. I can create a new row, and on that create row action, you'll then have an option over here to add a default value. And so this can help with those things like context. So if you have to worry about changing context, you want to do everything right here as opposed to having to go do something else and then do an update action separately. This can give you what you need to go update those specific fields with these default values. And then again, we just mentioned this, you can do it with conditions as well. So if you have a condition applied, any new rows in that model will also use that condition to define default values. So lots of cool things you can do with that. Okay, poll number 2. We would like to know what you guys are doing with Skuid and Lightning. So have you deployed Skuid pages to production in Lightning? If so, please say yes. If not, we got all the same options before. I'm not very creative with my responses. All right.
Because of issues.
Matt, can I say something?
Yeah, Carl, go ahead.
Just real quick, in the part about creating an action sequence, that's covered in one of the Squid Basics videos.
Oh, excellent.
So if we went pretty fast in this session, all the attendees can know that it's not because we didn't want to show you here, but we've got some other places to do that.
Yeah.
You can stop, freeze frame, go through many times if you want to, just how to create an action sequence.
If you can find that link and post it in the chat, that would be awesome. We've got the Squid Basics video series is a great place to go. Short videos on topics in Squid. Okay, I want to call out a couple other things related to formula fields, child relationship data, and some secret merge variables. They're not that secret. They're actually documented. Don't worry. I'm not going there. I saw temperatures rising.
Cody and I just both got a bit like, Wait,
What is it about to do?
All right. So this is something that we've run into before, where you want to conditionally render something or do certain actions based on whether or not a model contains a value somewhere in it. So you've got a model, it's got 10 different rows. One of those rows has a red flag field checked, and you want to go display something if that exists anywhere in the model. That can be kind of challenging, and Skuid lets you do it with the model lookup functionality in our formula field. So if I can go find that, there it is. Excellent. So this is just a simple one that I set up on on an opportunity model, where I have a separate UI only model. This is a pretty common thing you'll see. UIO vars, you'll use a UI only model to capture things like current state, data being passed from one place to another. And I've got a formula field here called model contains. And it's just a checkbox and says if, and I'm using the model lookup formula to go look an opportunity and return the name of an opportunity where stage name is contract signed. And I could put merge variables in there, or I could hard code it like this. And so what that lets me then do is I have a checkbox up here that will be checked if one of these has, actually we'll do one in the middle of the model, contract signed as its stage. Now, I do have to refresh because the model is not listening automatically for that change. And you can see that here. So there's some ways you can force that by, removing the rows from that UI only model and creating a new one, doing some things with update. If you need that to be real time, Skuid gives you the capability to do that. But if you just want to do something on page load, check to see, does this exist anywhere in a model? That's going to be how you can do that with the model lookup field, formula field. Okay, child relationship data. This is something that comes up quite a bit on the community, and you can probably just go search and find this if you need to. But if you get child relationships into a model, and so if we go to contacts, for instance, I can go to fields, and I can go down one level. So this is something that Skuid lets you do. In Salesforce, you can get child data and have that be pulled into a parent objects model. So for instance, I could get contacts and pull those in as child relationship data. And there's a lot that you can do with that. That's a whole rabbit hole. But you can then use that as merge in formulas. So you can say, go check to see, are there any opportunities on an account, and drive a UI only formula field off of that. So there are a couple of things that you can do with that. We've got a couple of merge variables like total size that you can do to get the length of how many child records there are and see that in line. So please go check that out. All right, last thing here on merge. Clark, what were you building here?
Well, I can't remember exactly what I was building that I got the need for this, but at some point I was building something with some complex kind of model conditions, and I was trying to get to a specific subset of data, and I didn't want to have to go into the console every time I tried something new and reloaded my preview. So I basically just went out to see if I could use some of the information from our API docs and merge. I didn't know that we could do this. Jay, Cody, someone might say, duh, you should have known you could do this. But
no, we never have that.
I know. Well, I mean, yeah, but there's a lot of things I don't know. So,
so stupid.
but yeah, so I went out and just tried a few of the variables. Some of the information from our API docs, and these were a few of them that I found kind of handy to be able to need. I really needed the sockle one there at the end. So you can call it from a specific account. And I really just put this in the page for building purposes so that every time I loaded the page, I didn't have to go searching for the sockle. And then at the end of the build, I simply deleted the template that was containing it. But that way I could consistently see what my query was and why I wasn't getting the information I needed. as I was working on it. And then that kind of led me down the road of trying a few more just to get some model information on the page. So there's a few of them there that work. Changes is a pretty handy one for saying like, hey, have there been changes to this model? And if so, do you want to take some action or not? It's a pretty cool
So tracking
option.
the state of things in the page.
Right. So
Yeah, that's helpful. Yeah, and I wanted to point that out because there's a lot of things that aren't necessarily explicitly called out.
Yeah.
And we've got a really, really handy doc on global merge variables. And I'm not going to go looking for it right now, but honestly, I should have it bookmarked because we use it all the time.
Yep.
And there's a ton of things in there, but there's also things that aren't in there that are in our API documentation that you can use as well. And that's what we're looking at here. And that is okay. That's kosher. We're good. Everyone's good with that, right?
The way I would answer it, and so if you look at our documentation
Yep.
for that global, looks like Josh has us, the $ model global merge. If you look at the very top of that doc that he linked, the difference says model access to JavaScript representation of a specific Squid model by name. So what that means is it's giving you a reference to the actual JavaScript model.
Yep.
Anything that's documented in our model API
Yep.
is
Yeah.
therefore documented with our merge API.
Exactly. So this is what we're looking at here is kind of a shorthand for a lot that's underneath the surface. And if you're like me and you don't come from a coding background, I will say, first time I saw merge syntax, it was like, what is that? I thought I was in a low code tool here. And you are, but what merge lets you do is kind of reach straight into the data and pull data and be able to use it in some more powerful ways. And so
They've reached minute 42.
okay. Awesome. Thank you. Anyways, all that to say, don't be scared by this. If you're not a coder, you can kind of ease your way into it. There's a lot of things that can be helpful. But a good place to start is use the model.length merge. That's a good way to go and see, here's how many rows are in a model.
Model.data.
Model.data.length. Thank you. Thank you, Jay. Oh, gosh, I quit. So anyways, but that's what we're looking at here. So if this is new to you, please don't be intimidated by it. There's a lot of cool stuff there. So I'm going to keep us moving. Clark, thank you so much for showing that. Want to do a shout out a couple of people, Chris Stern, Rachel Wilder. They've done a lot of cool stuff on V2, getting into the DSS, seeing what's possible there. And wanted to quickly call out a few things that are cool and possibly helpful to you. You can use gradients in defining colors in the DSS. So that's pretty cool. The color box will take that as an input. Another thing that Chris was looking into, because he just was really tired of calculating RGBA values, and he just wanted to put color hex codes and defining colors. And there are some cheat codes for appending some values onto a color hex code to get opacity. So you don't have to do RGBA. Now, caveat, I'm not sure if you might run into browser support issues on some of these, so definitely go check that first. But those could be helpful to you if you're doing design work with the DSS and Squid. And oh yeah, life hack, name your variables pixel widths too. When that can be helpful, save yourself a lot of time having to remember, oh, is my medium variable 52 pixels or 56 or what? So, all right, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Good idea. Your life has changed.
Yeah. All right. So speaking of the DSS, this is something that Gwen showed a while back, I think like on our first Nautilus Notes. And it was a preview page for being able to look at all the components with the DSS. So quick recap, what was it that made you create that page originally?
I was adding variants into like the design system, and I was needing to see how it would work with the other components and how everything would look as a whole if I just gonna combine these, because components and stuff, they don't just live by themselves, they work with other components. So I need to have a place to say, okay, everything looks good together, and when I make changes, I can see how that changes might like affect something else, or how that change looks with the other stuff as well.
Yeah.
And just to have a page to reference later, as other people join in the project, since it's reusable, I can say, here's how I built this, so I don't make changes like introduce any little inconsistencies.
Yeah, and there's just no substitute for being able to put something in front of someone and say, hey, is this what you mean? And so when you're doing visual design on an engagement or an app, and someone says, well, we really want magenta KPIs, you can say, well, is this what you mean? Are you really sure? Yes. Oh, I'm table thumping.
Yes.
I get knocked down, but I get up
You
again.
get up again.
Awesome. So Wen, do you want to show it
Yeah.
really quick?
Yeah.
All right.
So this is what I shared in I think the first Nautilus Notes, and this is what we're talking about in terms of putting everything that you're building in the same page as you're designing it, as you're doing whatever. The good place to say, like, okay, if I change this color, like how it's going to look in comparison to everything else. A good way to preview the design system. So what we are following up with today is that we think that may be helpful if we give this XML to everyone.
The people.
The people, so
All
that
right.
you can have like this page, and you can use it as well. So we put it on this Squid Labs.
Yay! Real
yeah.
quick, Cody, what's Squid Labs?
Squid Labs is a thing where you can show up all the cool stuff that may break or be set on fire any minute. but it's really cool right now, and it helps you do cool stuff.
It's like Mad Max, but with a little bit of society, like governing things.
That's exactly it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
Let's proceed at your own risk.
Yeah. But it's helpful. There are a lot of things on here and whole pages like this one that you can go get and use in your org. So is this up and available right now?
Yes.
Wow. So you.
And we for the dummy data, I'm using Salesforce standard objects.
Awesome.
So you can plug and play into any Salesforce dev report.
Yeah.
And we put notes in the README as well about like how to use it.
Oh man, that's great.
So yeah.
So this is also cool. If you want to show someone, if you're doing some internal marketing and you're trying to pitch Squid to your organization, this is a great way to go show your team what their data could look like in Squid components with the Squid design system. So please go check this out. Gwen, thank you so much. That is awesome. Yeah, please give her a hand. And I would also say it's a good place to go and maybe test new releases of Squid to see what might break. And so if you want to check and see a new release of Squid, hey, did it break my design system? Did it break my pages? You can have this page and go there, look through it, see if anything's looking crazy. That's a good way to do that. Okay, moving on. Product content team, what's going on? Oh, I should share my screen, shouldn't I? Yeah. You don't just want to see my miles high forehead.
Yeah. So in Docs, we have totally revamped our filters section. Filters is one of the most powerful, but also most, I would say for me personally at least. So we've basically gone through, cleaned up a lot of the languaging to try and make it more concise, but also more clear. And we've put several examples.
Hold on a second. I think we lost some audio. Just a second.
Are we back?
I think we're
You
back.
see the green microphone?
Audio's good. We're good.
Okay. Oh, you're good. Okay.
Okay, so from the top, we revamped the filters section, made it more concise and clear because filters are super powerful, but they can be pretty complicated in terms of understanding the different types of filters that are there, how to kind of set them up.
especially with these select options filters, is super powerful and super customizable, but it can be a little tricky. So yeah, check out docs.squid.com/latest/en/squid/filters. And I feel like that's a pretty good URL. It's relatively small.
That's a clean URL.
Yeah,
Get that on a
so
tattoo.
I love it.
yeah, so check that out.
I love
And,
this like choose your own adventure book that you got here.
Oh,
When
yeah.
I should use
Mhm.
the Squid filter. Man, that's awesome.
Shout out to Casey Arnold Ince for digging through
Oh, man.
the trenches on this one. So
Very cool. And you guys are doing some rearranging on the doc site?
yes, this is not ready for prime time yet, but we are going to try and reorganize for the people who like to peruse through the table of contents as opposed to search. We're going to try and organize things a little bit differently so that you can just kind of see how things connect a little more. One big thing is developer things, like in how to extend with code, was kind of sequestered off into its own section. But we recognize that's a big part in fully building out a lot of Squid solutions. So that'll be kind of clustered together, and we're just going to try and like make the site a little bit easier to navigate.
Awesome.
So that'll be coming soon.
Awesome. Big hand for our product content team. Thank you guys. You make our lives so much easier. All right, Jay, and then Jackson.
Yeah, I'll go real quick because mine's basically just patch. The first patch of 12.2 after the GA package is now live. 14 things addressed in that one. Expecting the second patch to roll out in the next couple weeks. Got 28 things included in it, so definitely will.
Lots of things.
Definitely encourage you to install that one when it comes out. Platform did release yesterday, so the latest patch is out there. And it was a fairly hefty list too, about 50 things I think were on that list. So
Thank you.
these patches really do have a lot of stuff in them, and encourage you to install them when they come out.
Awesome. Okay.
Take it away, Jackson.
Jackson, what's coming up soon? Relatively soon.
I have
Asterisk.
4 minutes. All right, I need to share my screen.
It's okay if we go over. We always
7
go over a
minutes,
little bit.
technically.
It's okay if I share my screen.
Yep, you go ahead.
All right.
And be careful with that. Let us connect. And it disconnected.
Okay. Quick preview of, folks can hear me? Just going to give a very quick preview of 3 things coming in 12.3. And you may immediately think, when is 12.3 coming? That's to be determined. We haven't set a release date for it yet. But someone earlier in the chat mentioned I can't move to V2 until we have collapsible panels. And that ties in here nicely with the accordion component. So one of the things we're adding in 12.3 is open conditions that can be set on accordion sections. This very ugly page, QA page you're looking at right here, shows a few examples of that. On the left, you've got on load here. This first section is open. This is a regular accordion where it opens one section at a time. But then next you see, here's an accordion. It's initially set for none to be open. There's one where the first section is set, or all sections. And then you can also toggle to let it be determined by section. And so if there are conditions that are met, that are true, then your section will be open. Conditions are false, it will be closed.
And I just want to clarify, this is something that a lot of Squid SEs ask for because the accordion component is really cool. It's really functional. And what we wanted to be able to do is be able to say, all right, by default, it's going to be this. And I want, if you've ever had to build like a hierarchy where everything's open by default or everything's closed by default, it was very hard to do that. So this really makes that a lot easier. And thank you.
And it may be in V1, there's collapsible panel, I think was the custom component. Accordion is the official component to replace that. If we go, I lost my tab because of the Zoom stuff. Let me see here. We go under the hood here to this page. That's what we were looking at, just our accordions there. You'll see here on the top left, the index.
Oh.
Index is a new feature we're working on a couple things just for quality of life in the composer experience. And one of the things we've heard over and over again is it'd be great if it were easier to investigate and search through my page and find the thing I need to work on. Index over here on the left is a new thing coming in 12.3. very similar to like a layers list in Sketch or Photoshop if you've worked with one of those. It's also searchable. So on those accordions there, if you needed to find the particular section that had fruit in it, well, I just searched for fruit, which is the heading for that section. And I can just hit enter and it'll actually move me down through the matches of my search. And it's also moving me in the canvas there. You can see it's moving me on to the next section. If something has multiple things of the same name, you can move through them easily that way.
Awesome.
Index responds to what you do on the canvas. So what I select on the canvas is selected in the index, and vice versa, what I select in the index.
You're getting some
Takes me that on-
some thumbs up
on the
from,
canvas.
from the
So-
comments. Mansoor, one of our partners, is loving this. Paul, Lean Cog is
searchable.
loving this.
Yeah, so you move down through there,
thank you.
and that should make investigating. We'd love any feedback of things you'd love to see with the index feature. Once we get it in your hands and you get to use it a little bit, we've got some ideas for what we want to do next. But and then another thing, preview real quick, is like I just took this wrapper and I accidentally deleted it, and I hate it that I did that, and so I'm just gonna go up here and hit
Hey,
undo.
Whoa.
Undo. Wait, and what's that other button right next to it?
Oh, and then that's
Redo.
that's redo. Yeah.
Oh
So
my gosh.
it's still in the works. You've noticed maybe when I hit redo, it didn't redo deleting the wrapper. So this is this is early. This is just in test cluster, things we're still QAing. But undo redo, open and close conditions for accordions, and the index
Man,
in the composer are 3 things coming in 12.3.
that's awesome. Thank you, Jackson.
Yeah.
And thank you everyone for sharing today. That brings us to the end of our time here. Please, if you get a chance, I'm going to go ahead and put this in the chat. I have a Google form where I'm tracking Squid Nautilus Notes feedback. So please go let us know how we're doing. If there's something that you specifically want to see content-wise, or if there's something you want to share, please let us know. I want to shout out our partners. I'm seeing representation there from Sassly, from Lean Cog, from Rose Tree. And if you're a Squid partner and I have not given you a shout out, please just give me all kinds of guff. I'm really sorry, and I'll shout you out next time. Thank you everyone for joining. We really appreciate you. The Squid technical community is a great community to be a part of. You guys are doing great work. We'll see you on the community. Thanks and have a good day.